Sejarah singkat air di permukaan bumi. Air, elemen vital bagi kehidupan, memiliki sejarah yang panjang dan kompleks di planet kita. Asal-usulnya masih menjadi subjek penelitian ilmiah yang intensif, tetapi kita memiliki pemahaman yang cukup baik tentang perjalanannya hingga membentuk lautan, sungai, dan danau yang kita kenal sekarang. Secara perkiraan terdapat 1.386 miliar kubik air. Berikut adalah jumlah air di bumi. Es di Antartika 27 juta km kubik air. Greenland 3 juta km kubik air. Kerak bumi 43,9 juta km kubik air. Lautan 1,3 miliar kubik air. Tahap awal, 4,54 miliar tahun yang lalu, saat bumi masih muda dan panas, aktivitas vulkanik yang intens melepaskan uap air ke atmosfer. Atmosfer awal bumi sangat berbeda dari sekarang, dengan komposisi gas yang kaya akan karbon dioksida, metana, dan amonia. Ketika bumi mulai mendingin, uap air mengembun dan membentuk hujan yang sangat deras. Hujan ini berlangsung selama jutaan tahun, mengisi cekungan-cekungan di permukaan dan membentuk samudera-samudera purba. Teori yang umum diterima adalah bahwa sebagian air ini berasal dari asteroid dan komet yang kaya akan es yang menabrak bumi. Namun, ada juga teori yang menyatakan bahwa sebagian air sudah ada sejak pembentukan bumi. Era awal kehidupan, 43,5 miliar tahun yang lalu, di dalam samudra purba ini, kehidupan mulai muncul. Organisme bersel tunggal, seperti bakteri dan arkia, berkembang dan memainkan peran penting dalam siklus biogeokimia, termasuk siklus air, fotosintesis, yang dilakukan oleh cyanobacteria, ganggang biru hijau, mulai melepaskan oksigen ke atmosfer, mengubah komposisi atmosfer secara bertahap. Evolusi samudra dan benua, 3,5 miliar tahun yang lalu. Sekarang, selama miliaran tahun, proses tektonik lempeng telah membentuk dan membentuk kembali permukaan bumi. Pergerakan lempeng tersebut menyebabkan pembentukan gunung, lembah, dan cekungan samudra. Proses erosi dan sedimentasi juga berperan dalam membentuk bentuk lahan dan mempengaruhi distribusi air di permukaan. Terbentuknya benua dan perubahan iklim secara signifikan mempengaruhi volume dan distribusi air di bumi. Zaman es dan periode pemanasan global telah berulang kali mengubah tingkat permukaan laut dan membentuk lanskap yang kita lihat saat ini. Air yang kita miliki saat ini sebagian besar merupakan air yang telah ada sejak awal pembentukan bumi, meskipun siklus air terus-menerus mendaur ulang air melalui penguapan, presipitasi, dan aliran permukaan. Siklus air ini sangat penting untuk menjaga keseimbangan ekosistem dan menyediakan air tawar bagi kehidupan. Kesimpulan, sejarah air di permukaan bumi adalah kisah yang panjang dan menakjubkan, yang melibatkan proses geologis, kimiawi, dan biologis yang kompleks. Memahami sejarah ini sangat penting untuk menghargai pentingnya air bagi kehidupan dan untuk mengelola sumber daya air kita secara berkelanjutan. Berikut adalah kisah tentang banjir di 4 kota yang berbeda di dunia. Kota Spanyol, kota Dubai, kota Indonesia, dan kota di China. Sistem drainase yang biasanya mampu mengatasi hujan lebat, kewalahan menghadapi curah hujan yang luar biasa intensitasnya. Dalam beberapa jam, jalan-jalan yang biasanya ramai dilanda banjir bandang. Mobil-mobil mewah terendam. Kejadian ini menyoroti pentingnya perencanaan infrastruktur yang tangguh menghadapi perubahan iklim. Bahkan di kota-kota yang dikenal dengan kekayaan infrastruktur dan teknologinya tak luput dari banjir. Proses evakuasi dan penyelamatan berjalan cepat dan efisien berkat respon pemerintah yang cepat dan terorganisir. Hujan deras mengguyur Barcelona, mengubah jalan-jalan bersejarah di kota tua menjadi sungai yang mengalir deras, bangunan-bangunan tua yang menawan, dengan saluran air yang sudah tua, tidak mampu menahan derasnya air. Banjir ini juga menyoroti kerentanan infrastruktur tua terhadap cuaca ekstrim, dan pentingnya investasi dalam pemeliharaan dan modernisasi sistem drainase. Kerjasama warga dan petugas penyelamat membantu meminimalisir dampak kerusakan yang lebih parah. Banjir ini bukan hanya masalah infrastruktur, tetapi juga masalah tata ruang kota yang buruk dan kurangnya kesadaran akan pentingnya pengelolaan lingkungan. Banyak warga yang kehilangan harta benda dan terpaksa mengungsi. Banjir juga menjadi pengingat akan ketidaksetaraan sosial dan lingkungan, di mana masyarakat miskin paling rentan terhadap dampak bencana alam. Kota-kota metropolis modern yang dikenal dengan teknologinya, juga tidak luput dari dampak banjir. Meskipun memiliki sistem drainase yang canggih, hujan deras yang berkepanjangan menyebabkan beberapa area terendam. Sistem transportasi umum terganggu, dan aktivitas ekonomi terhambat. Banjir ini menunjukkan bahwa bahkan kota-kota yang paling maju pun masih rentan terhadap dampak perubahan iklim. Respon pemerintah yang cepat dan terorganisir membantu mengurangi dampak kerusakan dan memastikan keselamatan warga. Namun, kejadian ini juga menjadi pelajaran berharga tentang pentingnya investasi berkelanjutan dalam infrastruktur yang tangguh dan strategi mitigasi bencana yang komprehensif. Keempat cerita ini menunjukkan bahwa banjir merupakan ancaman global yang tidak memandang status ekonomi atau kemajuan teknologi suatu kota. Perencanaan yang baik, infrastruktur yang tangguh, dan kesadaran akan pentingnya pengelolaan lingkungan merupakan kunci untuk mengurangi dampak buruk banjir dan melindungi masyarakat. Banjir memang memiliki dampak yang luas dan serius, baik bagi manusia maupun lingkungan. Berikut beberapa dampak utama banjir. Kerugian material, banjir dapat menyebabkan kerusakan properti, seperti rumah, bangunan, dan infrastruktur. Kerusakan ini bisa berupa kerusakan ringan hingga kerusakan total, tergantung pada tingkat keparahan banjir. Kerugian ekonomi, banjir dapat mengganggu aktivitas ekonomi, seperti perdagangan, pertanian, dan pariwisata. Kerugian ekonomi ini bisa berupa kerugian langsung, seperti kerusakan aset, dan kerugian tidak langsung, seperti hilangnya pendapatan. Korban jiwa, banjir dapat mengakibatkan korban jiwa, baik karena tenggelam, terseret arus, atau karena penyakit yang timbul setelah banjir. Dampak kesehatan, banjir dapat menyebabkan berbagai penyakit, seperti diare, kolera, dan demam berdarah, yang disebabkan oleh air yang tercemar. Kerusakan lingkungan, banjir dapat menyebabkan erosi tanah, kerusakan ekosistem, dan pencemaran air. Beberapa hal yang dapat dilakukan untuk meminimalisir dampak banjir: pencegahan, membangun sistem drainase yang memadai, menjaga kebersihan sungai dan saluran air, serta melakukan penataan ruang yang baik, penanggulangan, membuat tanggul penahan banjir, membangun pompa air, dan menyediakan tempat evakuasi, sosialisasi, memberikan edukasi kepada masyarakat tentang pentingnya menjaga kebersihan lingkungan dan cara menghadapi banjir.
Number 9. Port Royal, Jamaica. Port Royal, once called the most wicked and sinful city in the world, was famous all over for its liquor, parties, and pirate activities, until June 1692, when a massive 7.5 earthquake consumed the city, with 2/3 of it sinking into the sea, killing more than 2,000 of its inhabitants in the process. Edmund Harth, a survivor, wrote that the earth opened and swallowed many people before my face, and the sea I saw came came mounting in over the wall, upon which I concluded it impossible to escape. The English and their pirate friends were relatively new to the area at the time and had set up their stronghold there to try to attack the Spanish who were occupying Hispaniola. For years, people believed that the horrific event was punishment for all of the sins committed within. Once one of the largest European cities in the New World, Port Royal has continued to sink, with much of it sitting 40 feet below the ocean surface. Many 17th century buildings are still intact and undisturbed, and it has been compared to Pompeii for its archaeological wonders. Number 8. Sunken City of Cuba. In 2001, a company called Advanced Digital Communications, ADC, was working with Fidel Castro's government to explore Cuban waters looking for sunken Spanish ships loaded with treasure. Their sonar equipment picked up a series of geometrical structures lying on the bottom of the ocean. Here's a computer-generated image of the pyramids and other structures that they found. The structures and design made it look like there was a gigantic city at the bottom of the Bermuda Triangle. The media went crazy, claiming that Atlantis had been discovered in Cuba. There are local legends of the Maya and native Yucatecos that tell of an island inhabited by their ancestors that vanished beneath the waves. If it's true the structures were made by an ancient civilization, they would have been the most technologically advanced structures on the planet at that time. Scientists estimate that they would have been built about 50,000 years ago, which doesn't seem very likely. The numerous structures and cities that have been discovered underwater around the world lie less than 120 meters below sea level, which comes as no surprise since the sea level never fell below this mark during the time Homo sapiens walked the earth. This Cuban city, if we can call it that, is the only exception since it is submerged over 700 meters underwater. If the large structures are actually pyramids, two of them are even larger than the pyramids of Giza and Cheops in Egypt. As of yet, there is no plausible explanation for the existence of this city, and ADC is still trying to investigate the site. Number 7. Lake Titicaca. Lake Titicaca is located in the Andes between Bolivia and Peru. It is the largest freshwater lake in South America and was the cradle of Peru's ancient civilizations, including the Inca. Their presence can be seen on Lake Titicaca by the ruins they left behind, including a mysterious underwater temple thought to be between 1,000 and 1,500 years old. In the Incan creation myth, the god Contiki Viracocha emerged from Lake Titicaca. After commanding the sun, moon, and the stars to rise, Viracocha created more human beings from stone. After bringing them to life, Viracocha commanded them to go and populate the world. The Incas therefore believed that Lake Titicaca was their place of origin and that upon death, their spirits would return to this lake. Archaeologists located a huge temple in 2000 after following a submerged road, and I'm sure following advice from locals. After 18 days of diving below the clear waters of Titicaca, scientists said that they had discovered a 660-foot long, 160-foot wide temple. Number 6. Gulf of Cambay. Remains of a lost city in Gulf of Cambay off the coast of India could rewrite history. Discovered in 2001 during a routing pollution survey, India's National Institute of Ocean Technology was using sonar equipment that identified huge geometrical structures 120 feet below the surface. Debris recovered from the site, including construction material, pottery, sections of walls, beads, pieces of sculpture, and human bones and teeth, has been carbon dated and found to be nearly 9,500 years old. The first big cities on record in human history appeared in Mesopotamia around 4,500 years ago. Prior to that, everything consisted of small village settlements. Author and filmmaker Graham Hancock, who specializes in uncovering ancient civilizations, says that nothing else on the scale of the underwater cities of Cambay is known, creating a huge chronological problem with this discovery. It means that the whole model of the origins of civilization with which archaeologists have been working will have to be remade from scratch. It is believed that the area was submerged as ice caps melted at the end of the last ice age 9 to 10,000 years ago. Number 5. Alexandria. The ancient city of Alexandria, ruled by Egypt's last pharaoh Cleopatra, is almost perfectly preserved under the sea. More than 2,000 years after Alexander the Great founded Alexandria, archaeologists are now discovering its fabled remains. It is believed the city disappeared underwater due to a series of natural disasters, including tidal waves and earthquakes. Hidden for almost 1,600 years, it was rediscovered in 1998. Most archaeologists before then believed there was no hope in finding Alexandria as it had probably been destroyed. They were completely wrong. Scientists are now uncovering astonishing artifacts and rediscovering the architectural beauty and economic power of a city that ranked second only to ancient Rome. What may be the world's oldest surviving university complex has come to light, along with one of the 7 wonders of the world, the Lighthouse of Alexandria that guided ships safely into the Great Harbor for nearly 2,000 years. This Sphinx that the diver is photographing is 3,000 years old. The ghost from the past is being brought to light, and what used to be vague legends of Alexandria are now proof. There have recently been plans to build underwater tunnels throughout the city, making it the world's first underwater museum. Number 4. Pavlopetri, Greece. Nobody knows what the real name of this city is because it sank into the waters off the southern tip of Greece around 5,000 years ago. Pavlopetri is the modern name for the inlet where the ruins are submerged about 4 meters underwater. It claims to be the oldest known submerged city in the world. The city is incredibly well designed with roads, 2-story houses with gardens, temples, a cemetery, and a complex water management system. The city is so old that it existed in the period that the famed ancient Greek epic poem, the Iliad, was set in. Historians think Pavlopetri might have been destroyed by an earthquake that destroyed the Minoan civilization on Crete around 1000 BC. Number 3. Lion City. 130 feet underwater is a maze of temples, arches, roads, and houses. This is China's real-life Atlantis, although it was never lost and it was sunk on purpose. This was a massive government project that forced 290,000 people to relocate their homes as more than 1,300 villages and tens of thousands of acres of farmland were flooded and submerged. Even though this city is over 1,400 years old, it has only been submerged for about 60 years when the Chinese government decided to build the hydroelectric dam and create Qiandao Lake. Open to divers, the ancient ruins are in the process of being rediscovered and remapped with a new appreciation for the architecture and history that was almost lost. Another ancient city was also submerged in the lake. The city of Hechang is believed to date back even further. Number 2. Tunis, Heraklion. The Nile Delta used to be dotted by islands that have disappeared. There were some ancient historical texts that mentioned cities on these islands, but nothing substantial. Known as Heraklion by the ancient Greeks and Tunis by the ancient Egyptians, it was referred to as one of the places Helen visited with her lover Paris before the Trojan War. With a unique survey-based approach that utilizes the most sophisticated technical equipment, Frank Giotto and his team, in cooperation with the Egyptian Supreme Council of Antiquities, were able to locate, map, and excavate parts of the city of Tunis Heraklion, which lies 6.5 kilometers off today's coastline. Recently excavated after 1,200 years underwater, the city has been slowly giving up its secrets. It's far from the coastline, about 6.5 kilometers off the current coast. Artifacts brought to the surface indicate the ancient city was once a massive trading center and bustling port city. More than 60 ancient shipwrecks have been found in the immediate area, along with hundreds of anchors, coins from across the sea, giant stone tablets inscribed in ancient Greek and Egyptian, and 16-foot sculptures that were thought to have once adorned the city's temples. Those temples have also remained eerily intact, complete with offerings and votives once given to the ancient Egyptian gods. What hasn't been determined exactly is how the lost city ended up at the bottom of the sea, although it's thought that the clay and sandy soil it was built on gave way after an earthquake. Be sure to subscribe and let us know if you have ever been to any of these cities. Number 1. Yonaguni Pyramids. In the mid-80s, divers discovered mysterious underwater rock terraces and pyramids off the coast of Yonaguni-jima. Yonaguni-jima is an island that lies near the southern tip of Japan's Ryukyu archipelago, about 75 miles off the eastern coast of Taiwan. At first, scientists believed they might be natural formations, but there are quarry marks and some writing on the stones and animal statues that have also been found. Now, some experts believe that the structures could be what is left of the mythical city of Mu, a fabled Pacific civilization rumored to have vanished beneath the waves. Masaki Kimura, a marine geologist from the University of Japan, has been studying the underwater pyramids for over 15 years. The structures include castle ruins, a triumphal arch, 5 temples, and at least 1 large stadium, all of which are connected by roads and water channels and are partly shielded by what could be huge retaining retaining walls. Kimura believes the ruins date back to at least 5,000 years, based on the dates of stalactites found inside underwater caves that he says sank with the city. The theory is that the ancient city might have been sunk by an earthquake or tsunami around 2,000 years ago. Yonaguni invites tourists and researchers to dive freely around the site. If you want to know where you can be Indiana Jones in real life, click on the left. Did you know that the Earth has a heartbeat? To find out more about our amazing planet, click on the right. Be sure to subscribe and see you next time. Bye!
Here are 10 sinking cities that will soon be underwater. Number 10, Miami, USA. While the whole United States East Coast is in grave danger, Miami is in particular extremely vulnerable to rising sea levels. Miami sea levels are rising faster than in many parts of the world due to ocean currents and the city's low ground location, causing flooding, contaminated drinking water, and significant damages to buildings and roadways. The rising tide has become an inevitable element of life in Miami, increasing at a rate of approximately 1 inch every 3 years. Scientists are even predicting that the sea level will rise at a faster rate in the next 15 years, adding another 6 inches, definitely not so good for Miami. Floodwaters in Miami rise from storm drains, making it impossible to maneuver without coming into contact with the water, which is combined with sewage and whatever else it picks up along the way. Of course, this means the vast portions of the city will eventually become permanently uninhabitable pretty soon. The rest of the United States should pay close attention to how Miami deals with its sea level epidemic unless it wants to lose a major part of its economy. Number 9, Alexandria, Egypt. The great city of Alexandria is built on low-lying land, which you will find is a common feature for most of the cities on this list. Since we've already established that sea levels are expected to increase by as much as 2 feet by 2050, this puts major areas of the Egyptian city at risk for flooding because of upstream dams that impede silt replenishment and natural gas extraction. The land on which Alexandria is built on, as well as the neighboring Nile Delta, is actually sinking at a similar rate as the sea is rising. Alexandria, Egypt's second city, is surrounded on 3 sides by the Mediterranean Sea and backs up to a lake, making it even more vulnerable to rising sea levels. Residents housed in low-lying districts have already begun to feel the effects, some even claiming that the fortifications installed by the local government really haven't had much of a difference. Until 1993, according to Egypt's Ministry of Water Resources and Irrigation, the sea level rose by an average of 1.8 millimeters each year. Over the next 2 decades, that number increased to 2.1 millimeters per year, and since 2012, it has sharply risen to 3.2 millimeters per year. We wouldn't want another Egyptian city underwater, so let's all make sure to do our part to avoid this scenario. Number 8, Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam. According to a report by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, sections of Vietnam's largest metropolis might be submerged by 2050. The city has been sinking at a rate of up to 80 millimeters every year due to the rapid population increase the city has seen in the last 20 years. Climate change and rising sea levels only further exacerbate the situation. Extreme weather is also becoming increasingly common in the city of roughly 9 million citizens, but the infrastructure to control flooding has not kept up. The water delivery system is one such infrastructure that has failed to keep up with the city's rapid growth. both. As a result, many residents and businesses have turned to extract groundwater extraction while waiting for clean piped water. Unfortunately, excessive groundwater extraction can result in subsurface cavities collapsing, causing the soil on top to sink, further submerging the entire city. Luckily, discussions around the situation are currently underway, with the city's government even proposing to build a massive dike in response. Number 7, New Orleans, USA. Another American city, the sinking soils of New Orleans are caused by both human and environmental forces. Depending on how the measurement is done, approximately only half of the greater New Orleans is above sea level. It used to be completely above sea level until engineers in the 1900s built a drainage system with hopes of correcting the rising sea levels. Instead, they mistakenly ended up sinking half of the city to below sea level. You see, before people arrive in the area, the Mississippi River regularly deposited silt along the area's shoreline. As part of the drainage system, levees were built to prevent the natural buildup from occurring, which ended up starving the land of these natural sediments, removing water from the soil and creating air pockets, ultimately causing the entire area to be unstable. This caused the rapid sinking of the wetlands of New Orleans, and by the 1930s, only a few decades after the system was built, the entire third of the city had sunk below sea level. Number 6, Bangkok, Thailand. Flooding is a frequent and ongoing occurrence for more than 10 million people who live in Thailand capital city, Bangkok. With an average elevation of only 1.5 meters above sea level, the city dwells in extreme low-lying terrain and is positioned at the southern end of the Chao Phraya River basin, which creates frequent flooding problems as a result of urbanization and climate change. Because of its canals, the city was once known as the Venice of the East, but many of them have sadly been paved over due to increasing urbanization. Now, the rainwater that has been diverted has nowhere to go. Because of the buildup weight from increased urbanization and unregulated groundwater extraction, the country's capital is sinking twice as quickly as it was a decade ago, sinking 1 to 2 centimeters each year. Shockingly, scientists predict that the city will be entirely submerged in water within 20 years. We're now halfway through our video. If you're still with us, comment "sinking cities" down below. On to number 5, Dhaka, Bangladesh. The pressures on Dhaka are increasing as climate changes escalate. People used to be able to relocate to avoid the worst of seasonal flooding, but the increasing recurrence of waterlogging, which is simply the saturation of soil with water, is making farming quite unfeasible. Crop varieties are unable to withstand salt water, shutting down farms and making employment limited. According to the New York Times, Bangladesh only produces approximately 0.3% of the greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change and is unfortunately experiencing some of the worst effects of the rising sea levels. Despite contributing little to the industrial pollution that causes climate change, Bangladesh will bear the brunt of the results. Not only are the seas rising, but the country's land is sinking in tandem. Due to the extremely polluted rivers, locals often rely on pumping groundwater for drinking, causing the land to deflate. The problem is further exacerbated by poorly constructed seawalls and overall lacking infrastructure. Bangladeshis have already begun to migrate away from the lowest lying settlement in the Bay of Bengal's river deltas, according to Bangladeshi scientists. At the current trajectory, by 2050, it is estimated that roughly 18 million people will be displaced due to the rising sea levels. Number 4, Houston, USA. Houston, we have a problem. Due to the heavy groundwater pumping, parts of the city of Houston are sinking at a rate of 2 inches per year. The city depends heavily on aquifers, which are porous rock bodies that serve as natural filters to provide water to households, businesses, and farms. Overpumping can cause these aquifers to become depleted, causing the land to compress and sink. The overall Houston-Galveston region is one of the largest areas of subsidence in the United States. The city had experienced nearly 10 feet of subsidence that covered an area of nearly 32,000 square miles by 1979. In recent years, infrastructure destruction, flooding, and the loss of wetland ecosystems have all increased, leading to a visible altering of low-lying low-lying coastal regions. As Houston sinks, the more vulnerable it becomes to increasingly regular disasters like Hurricane Harvey, which destroyed nearly 135,000 homes and forced 30,000 people to flee their homes. Number 3, Lagos, Nigeria. The city of Lagos, which is found in Nigeria, is built partly on the mainland and partly on surrounding islands. It is the most populous city on the African continent and is facing considerable climate challenges, which have been amplified due to a weak drainage system and, you guessed it, excessive groundwater extraction. Because of these factors, Lagos's southern continental shelf is sinking, drawing the Gulf of Guinea closer, while the Sahara Desert to the north expands due to drought and hot temperatures. Since Nigeria's coastline is so low, even a mere 3 to 9 feet increase in sea level would have a devastating impact on human activities in the region, according to a study. Aside from rising sea levels, the city is also due to be plagued by an increase in rainfall over the next few years because of climate change, caught between a dry and a wet place. Number 2, Venice, Italy. If you're familiar with Venice, you probably already know of the aqua alta, or high water, which occurs many times a year when the tides are high. Because of that, Venice is sinking at a rate of 0.8 inches per year. That city has been said to have been sinking for several years now, but a recent study indicates it could be totally submerged sooner than expected. According to a new climate change report, Venice will be underwater by 2100 if global warming continues unabated. Plate tectonics is the primary cause of Venice's sinking. The historical city lies on top of the Adriatic plate, which is being subducted by the Apennines Mountains, which basically means the mountains are eating the region up. In 2003, Italy began construction on a flood barrier of 78 gates spanning its 3 inlets. It was named Mose. The barrier was meant to be finished in 2011, but was later to be finished sometime this year. The underwater barriers have been built to minimize the amount of water entering the lagoon in order to protect them and avoid further erosion. The system will be fully operational by the autumn of 2021, following a trial period which began in October 2020. You're nearly at the end of our video. Before we continue, make sure you are subscribed. That way you'll always be notified of our future videos. Number 1, Jakarta, Indonesia. Soon to overtake Tokyo as the world's most populated metropolis, this rapidly growing city is expected to be totally submerged by 2050. Prone to flooding, Jakarta is sinking at a rate of up to 10 centimeters per year, making it the world's fastest sinking city. The ground has fallen 2.5 meters in 10 years in portions of North Jakarta, which are particularly vulnerable to flooding. Because of the rising sea levels and the restriction of water access, the city's limited water supply, the majority of its population must rely on groundwater extraction for drinking and commercial purposes. When the Dutch arrived in Indonesia in the 1600s and created what is now Jakarta, they divided the city to keep the populace separated. Eventually, this segregation resulted in an unequal water piping infrastructure, excluding the majority of indigenous Jakartans and requiring them to seek alternative sources of power. Even if land sinking could be stopped, Jakarta would still be on the edge of the sea, and sea levels are rising quickly. To combat the threat, the city has already built a network of canals and seawalls, but climate change continues to make the dire situation even worse.
Lagi di channel Joliset, dan hari ini saya bersama Bapak Sipri Aswad di Desa Homuni Amna, Kecamatan Bikomunirulat, Kabupaten Timur Tengah Utara, Nusa Tenggara Timur. Dan hari ini saya ingin belajar dari Bapak Sipri bagaimana cara mengalirkan air dari tempat yang rendah ke tempat yang tinggi, lalu kembali ke tempat yang rendah tanpa listrik, tanpa memakai mesin. Kita lihat bagaimana cara menyambung pipanya. Ya. Ya, jadi teman-teman, ini pipa disambung tidak menggunakan lem, ya. Sama sekali tidak menggunakan lem. Bapak, kenapa ini tidak dilem saja?
Begini, sebetulnya dilem, tetapi karena kami tidak mau lem supaya kalau memang airnya tersumbat bisa dibuka dan tidak pekerjaannya tidak merepotkan. Karena kalau lem kita buka agak susah.
Jadi teman-teman, ini kenapa pipanya tidak dilem, agar apabila ada tersumbat dalam pipa bisa gampang untuk dibuka dan cari tahu di mana yang tersumbat. Pasang.
Putar dama. Jangan putar ke sini. Ya.
Ya. Jadi guys, yang pertama-tama dilakukan adalah kita sumbat bagian tutup pipa yang paling bawah, yang nanti mengalir ke bawah. Kita sumbat dulu. Kita tutup dengan plastik, lalu diikat.
Dengan bandalan.
Ya, jadi tutup dengan plastik, ya. Tutup rapat dengan plastik, lalu diikat dengan bandalan.
Ini cara ikatnya. Untuk mudah waktu mau buka supaya keluar cepat.
Ya, jadi ini karet bannya tidak diikat mati ya, tapi disimpul. Jadi ketika dibuka langsung cepat dibuka. Jadi ini pipa yang ditutup pakai plastik lalu diikat pakai karet ban ini adalah pipa yang dari dataran tinggi menuju ke dataran rendah. Nanti yang untuk pipa yang berikut kita akan ikat pipa yang dari dataran tinggi menuju ke danau, Bapak ya, menuju ke danau. Oke. Ya guys, jadi ini adalah danau yang nanti akan dimasukin pipanya sebagai sumber air untuk dialiri naik ke atas gunung lalu turun lagi untuk mengalir ke sawah.
Jadi luas ini danau, hitung lebarnya 12 meter. Lebar danau ini 12 meter, panjangnya 15 meter.
Kira-kira berapa kedalaman danau ini, Bapak?
Kalau kedalaman, kalau di tengah, kalau musim hujan begini, sekitar 10 meter. Nah, 10 meter.
Oke, teman-teman, jadi mari kita lanjutkan nonton video ini terus. Kita akan lihat bagaimana cara Bapak Sipri menarik air dari tempat yang rendah ke tempat yang tinggi, lalu mengalir lagi ke tempat yang lebih rendah. Ya, jadi ini adalah pipa yang dari dataran ujung pipa dataran tinggi menuju ke dataran rendah yang masuk ke dalam danau, ya. Jadi sama seperti kayak yang tadi menuju ke sawah, ini juga yang pipa ujung pipanya akan disumbat pakai plastik lalu diikat pakai karet. Sekarang Bapak, apa tujuannya ditutup pakai plastik lalu diikat pakai karet kedua ujung pipa?
Jadi maksudnya supaya pada saat kita isi air itu juga jangan keluar, sehingga itu mempermudah cara umpan dan cara air mengalir. Karena kalau sudah ikat begini kita isi air, angin tidak masuk di dalam. Nah, kalau angin masuk, kita tidak ikat, angin masuk di dalam, air tidak bisa mengalir.
Oh, jadi teman-teman, kenapa kedua ujung pipa yang tadi di sawah sama di danau diikat? Tujuannya yang pertama adalah supaya tidak ada angin yang masuk ke dalam pipa. Sebab kalau ada angin yang masuk ke dalam pipa, maka ketika kita masukkan air sebagai umpan, air tidak akan mengalir. Dan yang kedua adalah supaya ketika kita isi air sebagai umpan untuk menarik air itu tidak keluar. Ya, itu tujuan yang kedua.
Ya, jadi sekarang ini plastiknya.
Ya.
Jadi kita taruh di ujung pipa, langsung kita tarik sampai rapat. Rapat begini baru kita ikat dengan ban dalam. Ini ban dalam nih. Jadi cara ikatnya begini.
Jadi harus ikat keras Bapak ya?
Ikat keras. Karena air masuk di dalam itu dia ada tendangan toh.
Oh.
Nah, supaya plastik ini jangan tercabut. Maka yang kita mau ikat itu harus pakai ban dalam. Karena ban dalam lebih kuat.
Jadi ya, ini nanti ban dalamnya tuh jangan diikat mati ya, tapi disimpul. Jadi ketika ujung pipa ini sudah dimasukkan ke dalam air, gampang untuk dibuka.
Nah, jadi dia putar. Pasang tangan begini, langsung
Ya, jadi ini saya sama Bapak Sipri, kita akan umpan Bapak ya? Ya, akan umpan air, dan air akan diisi ke dua pipa. Pipa yang dari dataran tinggi menuju ke dalam danau, dan pipa yang dari dataran tinggi menuju ke sawah. Nah, itu tujuannya tadi, diikat kedua ujung pipa supaya air jangan keluar ya. Jadi ketika isi air di antara kedua pipa ini, air tidak keluar. Bapak, ini pipa ukuran berapa dim Bapak?
pipa ini ukuran 2 dim.
Dari danau sampai ke
sawah
sawah
2 dim.
2 dim. Pokoknya kira-kira berapa meter Bapak?
Jadi 120 meter.
Oh, jadi teman-teman, ini pipa ukuran 2 dim untuk dari danau sampai ke sawah tuh butuh berarti 20 batang pipa. Ya Bapak ya?
Ya, satu batang ini 6 meter.
Jadi satu batang ini 6 meter ya.
Ya.
Jadi jaraknya sekitar 120 meter lah dari danau menuju ke sawah.
Jadi sekarang kita mulai isi air.
Ya, jadi teman-teman bisa lihat, ini kita mulai mengisi air dari pipa yang menuju ke danau. Dan ini Bapak pakai pelepah pinang Bapak ya?
Ya, pelepah pinang.
Ya, jadi ini pakai pelepah pinang ya, sebagai media untuk menyalurkan air masuk ke dalam pipa. Jadi isi kedua pipa tadi itu sampai penuh.
Ya.
Ya, jadi ini pengisian untuk pipa yang dari dataran tinggi menuju ke sawah. Pipa yang kedua ya. Jadi sama juga seperti pipa yang pertama tadi, isi sampai penuh. Bapak kalau sudah penuh baru disambung.
Ya. Kalau kedua pipa ini isi sudah penuh, kita sambung. Jadi kita pada saat kita sambung, kita kasih masuk pipa, terus ada yang tolak dari sana, tolak dari ujung pipa yang dari air, supaya dia betul-betul masuk normal. Nah, sehingga pada saat air mengalir itu udara tidak masuk. Taruh air oke. Ya, lepas. Nah, ini
Ya, teman-teman, jadi ini kedua pipa sudah penuh dan sekarang saatnya akan disambung.
Geser ke lewat. Taruh air.
Cepat penuh.
Nah, ini om naon. Om nak itu air terus.
Awal.
Ampun. Sudah Kak?
Oke.
Sambung titik. Terus. Sudah.
Ya, jadi ini sudah selesai sambung. Sekarang yang terakhir adalah kita akan sama-sama buka kedua ujung pipa yang tadi di danau sama dengan ujung pipa yang tadi di sawah.
Jadi nanti ada yang buka pipa ujung pipa di sana, ada yang buka di sana, jadi ada 2 orang.
Ya, jadi nanti ada 2 orang ya. Satunya di dalam danau tadi untuk buka tutupan plastik tadi yang diikat, dan juga 1 orang lagi nanti di sawah untuk buka tutupan yang sama. Ya. Jadi itu dibukanya harus bersamaan nih Bapak
bersamaan. Ya? Lepasnya juga bersamaan.
Oh ya, jadi itu harus dibukanya bersamaan. Jadi hitung kayak 1, 2, 3 buka.
Oke, kita mulai.
Ya, jadi teman-teman ini sudah dibuka piring.
Ya, sudah. Air cuma kali.
Ya, jadi ini sudah dibuka tadi tupan plastiknya yang dalam pipa yang ada di dalam danau, dan airnya ini sudah mengalir ke atas lalu mengalir lagi ke bawah. Nanti kita lihat ya seberapa deras air mengalir menuju ke sawah. Jadi dia mengalir dari dataran rendah ke tinggi lalu kembali lagi ke dataran rendah.
Sudah.
Ya, jadi guys, sekarang kita akan menuju ke sawah tadi, ujung pipa yang di sawah. Kita lihat seberapa deras air mengalir. Ayo. Jadi teman-teman, inilah hasil dari kerja keras kami hari ini, dan semoga ini bermanfaat buat banyak orang, khususnya orang-orang yang hidup di pedesaan yang mungkin punya daerah yang sama seperti ini. Jadi misalkan kalau sumber air di bawah, tapi dengan cara ini bisa membantu agar bisa mengalirkan air dari tempat rendah ke tinggi lalu kembali lagi ke tempat rendah ya. Jadi kita patut bersyukur ya kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, karena Tuhan itu sangat luar biasa. Dia begitu luar biasa sampai menciptakan sebuah danau, lalu danau itu dimanfaatkan oleh warga sehingga bisa membantu warga untuk membantu mengairi air ke sawah ya. Jadi kita patut bersyukur ya, kita punya alam yang begitu indah ya. Semuanya, kalau video ini bermanfaat buat teman-teman semua, jangan lupa like, komen, dan subscribe.
Madura adalah nama pulau yang terletak di timur Laut Jawa Timur. Pulau Madura ini luasnya adalah 5.168 meter persegi. Coba marilah kita menghitung atau mengkalkulasi kebutuhan air untuk Pulau Madura tersebut dengan 4 kabupatennya, yang memiliki jumlah penduduk kurang lebih 4,1 juta jiwa. Yang pertama, mari kita hitung dulu pemakaian jumlah air untuk penduduknya, yaitu 60 liter per hari per orang dikalikan 4,1 juta jiwa. Dikalikan 30 hari sama dengan rata-rata 7.380 juta liter per bulan. Yang kedua, mari kita coba hitung jumlah pemakaian air untuk kebutuhan sektor pertanian, perikanan, dan perkebunan. Untuk luas pertanian yang ada di Pulau Madura adalah kurang lebih 2.100 hektar. Sedangkan untuk kebutuhan air di sektor pertanian adalah 6.000 meter kubik per hektar untuk sekali panen. Berarti kebutuhan airnya berkisar antara 12.600.000 meter kubik untuk sekali panen. Itu pun tergantung dari beberapa faktor. Jenis tanamannya yang ditanam seperti padi membutuhkan air lebih banyak daripada tanaman palawija seperti jagung atau kedelai. Iklim, suhu dan curah hujan juga berpengaruh. Di daerah kering, kebutuhan air lebih tinggi. Jenis tanah, tanah berpasir lebih mudah kehilangan air daripada tanah liat. Sistem irigasi, penggunaan irigasi yang efisien dapat mengurangi kebutuhan air. Sedangkan daya tampung air yang ada di Waduk Nipah di Sampang, Madura berkapasitas 6.300.000 meter kubik. Kesimpulan yang didapat antara input air dan output air terjadi ketidakkeseimbangan. Bagaimana kita bisa dapat mengantisipasi dampak perubahan iklim yang terjadi di dunia? Dengan kenaikan rasio panas rata-rata suhu berkisar antara 0,5 derajat Celcius per tahun. Diperkirakan panas bumi di Indonesia pada tahun 2040 berkisar antara 46 derajat Celcius. Grafik kenaikan suhu panas di bumi bisa dipelajari kenaikannya dari tahun ke tahun melalui literatur yang ada. Untuk itu perhatian yang serius bagi pemerintah pusat dan pemerintah daerah untuk dapat saling kerjasama yang baik dalam mengupayakan dan mengantisipasi hal ini sejak dini atau peribahasanya sedia payung sebelum hujan demi kemakmuran rakyat dan negeri ini merdeka bebas dari kebodohan, bebas dari kemiskinan, bebas dari penjajahan, ekonomi merdeka dan berdaulat untuk negeri ini untuk selamanya.